Hi, everyone. My name's Kim Nelson, and in 2018, I was honored as the inaugural YWCA Women of Power Award recipient. This is a recognition I will always treasure because I believe so deeply in the work of the YWCA Minneapolis. This is an organization that has been on the forefront of racial justice and women's empowerment in our town since the late 1800s. Work that has fundamentally shaped our community and work that continues today. At YWCA Minneapolis, the Woman of Power Award is given to an individual who has shown extraordinary leadership, commitment, enthusiasm, and support for the mission of the YWCA Minneapolis. Award recipients are recognized leaders and inspiring role models who have truly made an impact on eliminating racism and empowering girls and women. Congratulations to Shelley Carthen Watson, the 2020 recipient of the YWCA Women of Power Award.
My name is Sharon Sayles Belton, and last year it was my honor to receive the Women Power Award from YWCA Minneapolis. It meant a lot to me personally because I've spent so much of my life participating in programs of YWCA. In fact, my involvement dated back to my days in high school. They taught me the values that were really important to me, being able to make the connections that I really wanted to make and I value so much in my community. And they also taught me core skills that I know absolutely helped me to advance in my career. So thank you, YWCA Minneapolis. Today, it is my great pleasure to present the 2020 Women of Power Award to Shelley Carthen Watson. Shelley Carthen Watson personifies the mission of YWCA Minneapolis. Distinguished in civic, professional, and academic roles, she demonstrates extraordinary commitment to YWC values and leadership in our community. Ms. Carthen Watson is nationally renowned labor and employment law expert. She's an advocate of youth development and works tirelessly to create new opportunities for inclusiveness and collaboration. A frequent guest lecturer for conferences and law school classes, Shelley serves as a mentor to young African American lawyers to build and support future leaders of color in the legal profession. She is currently the Senior Associate General Counsel at the University of Minnesota's Office of the General Counsel. Through her contributions, Shelley Carthen Watson strengthens our community and paves the way for a lasting impact. Congratulations to Shelley Carthen Watson, YWCA Minneapolis' 2020 Women of Power Award recipient.
Hello, YWCA Minneapolis supporters. I am Michelle Basham, and I am very excited to be here today with our Woman of Power Award winner for 2020, Shelley Carthen Watson. How are you today, Shelley?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Can you reflect on your experience with YWCA Minneapolis, and how do you feel about being recognized as this year's Woman of Power Award recipient?
I grew up in San Bernardino, California, and my mom was involved in the YWCA there and a volunteer and served on the board for many years. So the YWCA has sort of always been a part of my life. And then when I moved to the Twin Cities, I started out going to Circle. And then it's time to talk and talking to more and more people about the work that the Y did. And I was really fortunate that opportunities came along that allowed me to volunteer at the YWCA of Minneapolis. And so then I joined the board. And after a couple of years of withdrawal, I actually have joined the St. Paul YWCA board as well. So my involvement has continued. I am beyond, I'm honored, but beyond excited to get this award. Kim Nelson and Sharon Sayles Belton are two women that are continual sources of inspiration and role models for me. And I feel like those people at the Oscars where they say, oh, it's just an honor to be nominated. But seriously, to be counted among that group is beyond my wildest expectations. And I think anyone who's been involved with the Y, to be around these incredible, strong women, and then to have someone invite you to be a part of those women, but then to single you out, is just an incredible honor.
Can you talk a little bit about why mentors are so important, and who are some of the mentors that you've had in your life and career who have been beneficial to you?
Mentoring is just incredible. I can remember growing up, I was at school and there were a group of volunteers, ladies who volunteered at my school. And one of them asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said, I am going to be a lawyer. And she laughed. This is 1968. And she said, oh, honey, she said, little Black girls can't be lawyers. And so I was devastated, and I went home and I was, and my mother said, what's the matter? And I said, Mrs. So-and-so said I can't be a lawyer. She said, little Black girls can't be lawyers. And my mother was like, what? She said, what? And she hooked me up with a friend of hers, actually, Audrey Perry. I remember Mrs. Perry, but Ms. Perry was a paralegal. Her husband was a judge. And Ms. Perry was in law school as well, and was studying to become a lawyer, and did become a lawyer. And that was an incredible mentor for me. And then professionally, I was, and also there were a number of women in my very small town, San Bernardino, California, who encouraged me. And taught me that my village taught me that strong, intelligent, assertive women were the rule and not the exception, and that there weren't any, there was nothing that I couldn't do if I put my mind to it. And I've been really fortunate here in the Twin Cities to have some incredible professional mentors. People like former board member Michelle Miller, Cornell Moore, Jerry Blackwell, Don Lewis, Kim Foster Price. They have nurtured me professionally, but more importantly, they have been the impetus for me to continue to mentor others. They have given me so much that the best way for me to repay them is to invest my time and energy in the next generation of not only young lawyers, but kids as well. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the Rites of Passage program. It's a program for African-American senior high school boys, and it's about 6 months, and they're paired with an African-American male mentor from the community. And it's really a lifelong relationship for them. And I can't tell you how it feels to see, I call them my Rites of Passage babies, out in the world. For example, one of them, Dr. Abdul Omari, was on the board, got his PhD at the U, and was on the Board of Regents of the U. And to sit there in a Board of Regents meetings and realize that, here's one of my Rites of Passage kids, and I work for him. And I see them out and about, and I see their accomplishments, and I get the graduation announcements from grad school and the birth announcements. And this is why we do what we do. Wow. It's not only expected of us, but it's just it's an unfathomable joy to know that you were able to bless someone else in the same way that you were blessed.
It feels like even today in 2020, women are often discouraged from being strong and assertive and outspoken. How do you encourage and kind of hold up other women, whether young or not, to be strong and outspoken and assertive?
It is a constant process. No one can make you feel inferior without your permission. And you have to know I tell them, you have to know who you are and what you are. Who they think you are doesn't matter, because they don't define you. You define you. And you make sure you surround yourself with people who also share your vision, who are like-minded. And you need to have your tribe of other women who remind you of that and support you. Because young girls tend to sort of cannibalize each other. And we need to stop doing that and encourage each other instead. And it is okay to be smart. It is okay to be ambitious. It is okay to be assertive. And it's okay to even be aggressive at times and stand your ground. Pick your battles, but stand your ground.
In our work with girls, we see that one of the biggest worries for girls, no matter what their background, is often simply a lack of self-confidence. How did you find your voice and your self-confidence?
To be honest, I'm not always as confident as I should be or I would like to be. And I think, like most women of my age and professional women, we suffer from the imposter syndrome from time to time. And we sometimes have to shake ourselves out of that. For me, I think the epiphany, so to speak, was when I went to my first high school speech tournament and did well and thought, oh, I'm good at this. There are people who think I can do something well. There are people who are willing to listen to me. I kind of like this. And that sort of propelled me to other things. And just, being able to take a deep breath and stand up there, in front of hundreds of people, it makes a difference.
What advice would you give to young women to try to develop that self-confidence?
I think the important thing is to find your passion. And to do that, you have to be willing to just try different things, try new things, try different things. And it's okay if it doesn't work out. It's okay if you don't like it. It's okay if you don't excel at it. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. Even, you could still enjoy playing basketball if you're not a starter, or an all-star. But just try different things. Eventually you will find your passion. And what's the worst thing that could happen? You don't like it and you go try something else. But you have to keep telling yourself, you are enough. You are entitled to be happy. You are entitled to try new things. You are entitled to actually reinvent yourself over and over again in any way you like.
You have a really big job professionally. You are the senior general counsel at one of the largest public universities in the country, at the University of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit more about some of your responsibilities at the University of Minnesota?
Sure. I'm senior associate general counsel. I've been there about 20 years, and I handle labor and employment matters. On the employment side, I'm responsible for counseling one half of the university units and the Crookston and Duluth campuses. So I provide support for the Central Office of Human Resources and all the HR leads and directors in those various departments and campuses. So I do advice on hiring, on performance management, on firing. I do counseling on disabilities, the ADA, age discrimination, gender bias. I do training for folks on investigations and disciplinary matters. And then on the labor side, I do, I have 14 unions that I deal with, and I do 14. Yeah.
Oh boy, okay.
Contract interpretations, interpretation of labor contracts, grievances. I oppose union organizing campaigns. I'm laughing because my daughter just does just the opposite. And I manage strikes, unfair labor practice claims. And then I actually defend the university in charges brought by the EEOC and the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, and actually litigate cases on occasion.
Okay. Well,
more than enough.
That's a big, big job. As you are probably aware that in Minnesota, unfortunately, we have one of the highest rates of racial disparities across multiple different areas, including high school completion, as well as access to higher education. And even once students of color get into higher education, they are less likely to complete a higher education than their Caucasian counterparts. As a person of color in a leadership position at a major university, what are your thoughts about reducing some of those racial disparities, both in access to higher education as well as completion of higher education for individuals who are racially and ethnically diverse?
Well, I don't do work with students or admissions, and I'm speaking as a private individual and not on behalf of the university.
I like the disclaimers. Okay. Yes.
But I think that the key thing is to eliminate the systemic barriers at the very beginning, long before they get to the university stage. And that means providing adequate childcare. At the Y, 100% of our kids test ready for kindergarten. And that foundation is so critical because it helps children succeed later on. We have to make sure they have the resources to develop the learning skills that they need, the educational opportunities. We talk a lot about the achievement gap. I don't consider it an achievement gap. I call it an opportunity gap. And we need more programs like those utilized by NAS, the Northside Achievement Zone, that does sort of a circle, the circle, I call it circle the globe, of families to provide them with the educational foundation that they need to succeed in elementary school and junior high. And then we can't escape the fact that a lot of it is economic. A lot of families do not have the resources to send their kids to Concordia language camp or to get them SAT or PSAT prep courses. Everyone doesn't live in a neighborhood where they have schools with advanced placement courses, or the curriculum is such that would prepare them for a lot of higher education institutions. So we have to eliminate those barriers before students even apply. And then once they get there, and I like, I'm very passionate, I'm an alum of Macalester, and I'm very passionate about the work that Macalester does with first gen students. And I really love working with that because you have to, just admitting someone to the institution isn't enough. You have to make sure that they have the support that is needed. You can provide financial aid, but for someone who's arriving in a totally different academic environment and a totally different social environment. And you also have to provide support for their parents. If you're a parent who hasn't had a higher education experience and your child calls and is upset about some of the incidents or experiences that they are having, your first instinct is to, you don't know how to react to that. You don't have necessarily the scaffolding on which to really assess that situation. And so your first reaction is to tell your kid, well, come home. You don't have to do this. That's not necessarily what they need. And so you need support not only for first gen students, but first gen parents as well. It's just daunting for a lot of first gen parents to go through the whole application process, let alone the students. And then for students for whom who are not, English is not their first language, a lot of times they're translating for their parents. And that adds a whole other list of complications. So there are a lot of factors, and I think you have to start with quality childcare to begin with, and then keep adding on even before they get to college.
Thank you. As you've talked about, you have a long and deep background and expertise in labor and employment law, and COVID-19 has added a whole new dimension, both present and potentially future, with labor and employment law. I was listening on the news this morning to some complaints that are already being filed against employers that are alleging retaliatory terminations because employees said that their workplace conditions were unsafe and they weren't being provided the appropriate protective equipment. How do you think that public policies for employee protections might change as a result of COVID-19? And how might employers change their policies in response to COVID-19?
Well, I think you can't limit it just to COVID-19. I think we have to look at through sort of a political lens, because the political landscape has shifted so much in the last 3 years So that the National Labor Relations Board and the Supreme Court and a lot of federal courts are sort of rolling back a lot of the Obama era employee protections. And so you are finding some employers feel emboldened by that. Fortunately, the university is not one. But you also find employees that are much more reticent to assert themselves in these situations. And with COVID, it's almost a perfect storm of circumstances because you have a lack of funding, you have a lack of preparation. And so that's led to these work conditions for these employees. God bless them. And I should insert this, my fiance is a retired doctor who has come out of retirement actually to serve on the front lines in the hospital, the ER in Detroit. And so you have these employees who are just exhibiting great sacrifice, who are there to take care of us, who have had to separate themselves from their families. And, you know, they feel that the least we can do is provide them with appropriate equipment. And unfortunately, what we are seeing is a lack of, let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? So when employees, you know, we're weakening OSHA standards, we're weakening a lot of workplace protections. And so when employees try to complain about these sorts of things, their complaints go unanswered. And then when they try and take the official route, a number of them are finding that they are being relieved of their responsibilities, or even those who aren't working in emergency rooms who are concerned about having to come to work, or the lack of social distancing in their workplaces. They feel their complaints aren't taken seriously, or that they're sort of viewed now as a complainer or someone who's a slacker. You have some employers who don't think people working at home are actually working while they're at home. And so there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of distrust in the workplace as a result.
How are you staying connected with your network of family and friends and colleagues during this time when we can't physically be together in a way that we might like to be?
Well, I've had to be much more intentional about it. I'm on the phone a lot at work. I wear a headset. I would say probably 90% of my time is spent on the phone. So in my personal life, I really hate talking on the phone. And now I go from that to like Zoom, back-to-back Zoom meetings all day. But I have found that it's very important for me to touch base. My brother passed away a couple of weeks ago. And so, and we're all spread out across the country. And because of COVID, we couldn't gather. And so I find that not only do I talk on the phone now, but I actually use FaceTime. Because I really need to see their face, not just hear their voice. And I need to see my kid, and even though she's 27, to know that she's okay, or my fiance. We do a lot of virtual hangouts. I have my tribe, my group of close friends, and we do virtual happy hours. My daughter and her friends did a virtual spa night last week, where they did their facials and everything else, but just so they could see each other, know they were okay, and remain connected. And I think we have to, whether it's Skype, whether it's Zoom, whether it's FaceTime, and even I've seen an uptick in social media. A lot of times it's sharing articles and stuff, but I hear from people that I went to high school with that I haven't talked to, in 40 years. And I see more sharing of personal thoughts and sharing of pictures and families. And you feel a lot more connected to people than you did before. So I think not only are our circles connecting, but they're widening. And so I'm kind of excited to see what happens at our new circle.
It has been such a pleasure talking with you. I, again, really look forward to being able to meet with you in person, hopefully not too far in the future. And congratulations again on winning the 2020 YWCA Minneapolis Woman of Power Award. Clearly, you are the perfect person for this award.
Thank you so much. I am incredibly honored.